Hi, and welcome to day 7. What we're going to be looking at is exception handling and debugging. In video 1 on day 7, we're going to be doing homework revision from day 6. Now, I asked you to do 2 questions. Let's look at question 1. I asked you to write a Java application that read a list of company names from a text file and place them into an array list, and then using your knowledge of functional programming, specifically the Lambda expressions, was to print out the list to the screen. And then what we wanted to do was filter the array list and only print the company names whose name started with a letter A. So let's go to the code and go and have a look at my solution. Now, I want to just point out before I show you the code, there are different solutions. And if you have a different solution that works, then please be proud of it. Right, here we are at the code. Now, first things first is I created myself a new project called Day 7. And within this project, I created a folder called Resources. And in Resources, I created a file called companies.txt. And I then added some data to companies.txt. So let me show you that. I added a couple of company names to that and saved that. So that's the first thing I did. Then I created a class called Video 5 Day 6 Question 1. I packaged it just to keep with the norm. And as you can see, what we needed to do is we needed to read this text file. So I used classes, the IO classes that would help me read that text file. I used the file class, file reader, buffered reader. And I needed a string so that I could read each company name as a string. And I wanted to take each company name and put it into an array list. So on line 16, you'll see that I've created an array list. I've limited to data type string. I called it company names. Now, when we get down to the line number 21, I then created an objective file and I connected that to resources and the companies.txt. Now notice that is a relative path and not an absolute path. I then created the objective file reader and I used that file class to make the connection for file reader. I then created an object of buffered reader and I wrapped the buffered reader around the file reader as you've become so used to. Then on line number 25, I went and I read from the file. I read the first line of text. It brought it back as a string and I saved it into company name, which is of data type string. Then I went into the loop on line 27 and I said, if the company name is not null, in other words, if it's not finished, then add it to the array list called company names, and then read again, and go back into the loop at the top and test if it's not null. If it's not finished, if it's not null, add it until such time as it's finished. Once it's finished, it'll go along to lines 33 and 34, and it'll close those connections for the file reader and the buffered reader. Right, I've scrolled up, and what I'd like you to look at is line number 48. Now, we know that array lists have a stream. So what we've got is we went and got the stream, we're using the for each loop, and we're using a Lambda expression to put in a method, system.out.println, and we've printed the name because that company names is of type string. So that should be pretty easy. It'll loop through that and print each name to the screen. Now on line number 54, that's a little bit interesting. We've also got the stream, but we're filtering the stream, okay? And again, we are using a Lambda expression. Now you'll see that E, you can name that anything. And we're going to get the character at position 0, because what happens is every time it goes through that array, it brings back a string. And the character in the first character in the string is always at position 0. And what we're going to do is we're going to check to see if that's capital A. And if it is, then what we'll do is we'll filter that to the for each loop and we'll print that to the screen. Right, now let's execute the program and see how this pans out. Okay, so you'll see that first for each loop just prints out the list of companies, and that second one we filter out all of the companies whose first letter starts with an A, and I'm sure that you can check that and find out it works pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a brief look at question 2. I wanted you to adjust that employee class that I'd asked you to look at earlier in the video. And then we were going to print out the surname and salary for each employee to the screen using a normal for each loop. We were then going to print the name of all the employees who earn less than 7,000 per month using Lambda functions. And we'll print to the screen all employees whose surname starts with the letter S. So let's go and have a look at this in code, and I'm going to be very brief. Right, let's start off by having a look at that employee class. And I'd asked you to look at this particular class early on in the video lesson. And we were due to make a small change, and you'll see that on line 6 I added the salary. And also I made a change in the constructor. You'll see on line 12 I set the salary to 0.0. I also have get methods and set methods for all the attributes, as you will see down here, including salary, and I have a toString method. And that was all there was to this employee class. Then let's go and have a look at video 5, day 5, question 2. Now, I asked you to create an array list of type employee, which you see on line 9. And then I wanted you to add 20 employees to this array list. So what we did here is we created a new employee each time, gave it name, surname, but we had to set the salary because the array list didn't, the constructor didn't allow us to do that. And we did this 20 odd times. And you'll see that I've done it down here, and I'm skipping down very quick. And then what we did when I got down to line number 72 is we used a for each loop to print out the name, the surname, and the salary. And I think we've done enough of those to understand what is happening. Now, on line number 79, we got the array list employees stream, and we filtered. Now we needed to filter the salary. So we filtered the salary using a Lambda expression, E and E.get salary less than 7,000. And what we then needed to do was we needed to, again, for each with a Lambda expression and go through that array list. So again, remember that filter output is then going to the for each. So it will then print out everybody that has a salary of less than 7,000. And last but not least, on line 84, what we were doing there is we got the employee stream, we filtered the surname. Now notice that here, the surname is a string, and in the string class, we have a method char at. And I want to get the char at position 0, which is an S. Now, what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to say the char at position 0, which is the first occurrence of a character, if that is equal to capital S, okay, then what happens is we'll print only those whose first character is capital S. And again, I go down the for each with a Lambda expression and I'll print that to the screen. So we can have a look at what happens here. So let's go and have a look. So when I do this, the first thing that happens in my simple for each loop is everybody is printed out, their name, their surname, and their salary. Then what you're going to see down here is the second Lambda expression that is used where we filter everybody whose salary is less than 7,000. You'll see that it's everybody here in the original array list whose salary is less than 7,000 is printed out. And of course down here, the last one we filtered out everybody whose surname begins with an S. And there you have it for your homework revision. This brings us to the end of your homework revision.